Are the Edmonton Oilers close to a blockbuster deal with the Montreal Canadiens? We know their goaltending situation needs to be addressed, and all the information seems to be indicating Montreal might be the more logical team we see them deal with. We also have some trade talk around the Columbus Blue Jackets and the San Jose Sharks, several injury updates, including a big detail on Carey Price and what ended his career. We also have another record set by Marc-Andre Fleury, a big night for Connor Bedard. The Penguins are retiring Jaromir Jagr's jersey finally, plus lots of other injury updates and lineup changes around the NHL. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. Let's get started first with the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, it seems like the sky is falling at Edmonton. They lost last night to the lowly San Jose Sharks and are now tied with San Jose for last place in the NHL. Certainly not where we expected them to be. A lot of people predicted that they would be a Stanley Cup contender or potential Stanley Cup winner. Even if they weren't going to live up to that expectation, I think most people would have at least agreed that they would be a playoff team and had a chance to go deep in the playoffs, not go deep into the draft lottery and have a shot at first overall. That's kind of not what anybody was thinking. Losing last night to the Sharks was a new low for Edmonton. A lot of people suspected that maybe we'd see something drastic out of the Oilers organization today, whether it be a coach firing or a trade, something of that nature. Nothing has happened here as of yet. Word from TSN reporter for the Oilers, Ryan Rishaug. He says that he got the feeling today from what he knows around the Oilers that there would not be any coach movement, at least not yet. If anything's going to happen, it might be more likely to happen when they return from this road trip. At this point, Jay Woodcroft ran practice today. They are set to take on Seattle tomorrow. So I don't suspect anything will go down from that perspective, at least. Like I said, at least a couple more days. Could we see a trade sooner? That part is remotely possible. It just kind of depends on Ken Holland, GM, and what they figure out. But yeah, the sky is falling at Edmonton. Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid doing media today. Very, low-key, grumpy, you could say, which is frustration setting in, which is very understandable. But that was quite the loss last night. They just cannot generate offense. As much as you can blame their goaltending and defense for a lot of their flaws, and those are certainly legit, even when they have games like they did yesterday where they can contain the teams down to 2 or 3 goals, they're still not getting enough offense from their top guns to outscore their problems, which is what they've done a lot of times in the past. And McDavid is definitely not doing McDavid things out there, as the Sportsnet commercial talks about. He's not looking like himself, in my opinion, when he came back from the Heritage Classic. I don't think he was near or really close to 100%. I'm going to say maybe 70, 80%, but even then you'd think a 70, 80% McDavid's still better than a lot of players, and he's still struggling out there. And I don't think he's the only one either on that team. And Matthias Ekholm's another one that looks to be laboring out there, not quite himself. So we'll see. We are going to talk a little bit further about the Oilers a little bit later in this video and how they might react to that. But for right now, the coach is safe for at least one more day, one more game, and we'll see what happens. We got big news out of Pittsburgh today. We finally got confirmation that they're going to retire the great number 68 for Jaromir Jagr. They posted a video of Jagr taking a phone call confirming he'll be in attendance on February the 18th for that to take place. Of course, Jagr's been away from the NHL now for quite some time, but technically still plays for his home team in Kladno over in Czech Republic. And because of that, he's theoretically not eligible for the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I know a lot of times when even with jersey retirements, they like to wait for the player to be retired. But of course, he's basically been retired from the NHL, so the Penguins are finally going to do it. I think they've been wanting to do this for a while, but I think it's fair to say when he left Pittsburgh all those years ago, and even over the years, like there seemed to be a strained relationship. I believe Phil Bourque, former Penguin and current broadcaster, was part of the making amends between the two sides, taking a trip over to see Jagr and getting all this hell kind of sorted out. So number 68 will go to the rafters in Pittsburgh on February the 18th. I believe their opponent that night will be the Los Angeles Kings. Several other news and notes from around the league. Let's start with Toronto. John Klingberg will not be in the lineup when the Leafs face the Calgary Flames tonight. Actually, Klingberg, according to Sir Sheldon Keefe, is dealing with an injury, which is, I think, just him kind of saving reputation a little bit here for his defenseman, kind of making things, be a little easier from the media. I think it's fair to say Klingberg was going to be a healthy scratch. Based on the line rushes the day before, it seemed pretty obvious. Klingberg had kind of lost the trust of the coach, and, there has been some talk. I know Elliotte Friedman was talking on his podcast that he was talking with somebody. He said it was a Western Conference player, I believe is all it was. It was played against Klingberg a lot over the years, and that from what they can see, this looks like Klingberg is not skating just right. They've kind of had the feeling that there is something off. And Elliotte was talking about how Klingberg might be apparently has hip issues. I'm not sure how well known that is or what the Leafs know about this, but if they did know about this, that makes it even more of a baffling signing. They should have gone the route of offering more to Matt Dumba or going in another direction altogether to try to address this blue line. Jake McCabe is back tonight. So they were contemplating going 11-7 originally, leaving Klingberg in, and then Reeves was going to be coming out. But instead, I believe Reeves will be staying in, and Klingberg will come out and will go 12-6. So be curious to see how they play against the Calgary Flames, another team in Canada here that's having its inconsistencies and its struggles. Of course, they're not struggling nearly to the point of the Oilers. They're a little bit ahead of the Senators in that sense too, but not by a lot. Obviously, they lost to the Sens just a few days ago, but then the Sens turned around afterwards and lost their next game. And of course, both teams will play the Calgary Flames here in consecutive days. We also got word earlier that Washington Capitals have recalled Nicholas Aubé-Kubel as well as Hunter Shepard, the goaltender. So clearly one of their goalies is going to be missing time. The Calgary Flames, Jacob Markstrom is listed as day-to-day. Of course, we knew they called up Dustin Wolf and that there was a chance he could actually play. And that's been confirmed by Ryan Huska. No confirmation that Dustin Wolf will play for sure, but at least we know now that Markstrom is dealing with something and is considered day-to-day. Vladar is playing tonight, and there's a possibility that Dustin Wolf could make his NHL regular season debut tomorrow. So we'll see where things go on that front. Marc-Andre Fleury made another big moment in the goalie history, passing Patrick Waugh last night, moving into third spot on the all-time saves list. He's actually made 25,808 saves all time, only behind Martin Brodeur and Roberto Luongo. Considering the gap between where Fleury is in the third spot and those two first and second, I think this is probably about as high as he can go. A lot of people believe this will be the last year for Fleury. It's been kind of treated as like a last time around, if you will, especially how he had such a big deal in friends and family in Montreal for his last appearance there. Can't say with certainty he's going to retire after this year, but it certainly gives the feeling and the vibe that he will be. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. The LA Kings have sent Jared Anderson-Dolan and Jordan Spence back to the American Hockey League as well. And the Minnesota Wild are welcoming back Captain Jared Spurgeon to make his season debut. Of course, they've been dealing the whole regular season so far without him after getting hurt in the preseason. So they'll welcome him back this evening. Connor Bedard had another big night last night, putting up 4 points. He's currently on pace to score 48 goals if he keeps up what he's doing here in the early part of the NHL season. He's actually the youngest player in 79 years to post a 4-point game. So we knew Bedard was going to be a special player. And considering the supporting cast of Chicago, no offense to those players, but they're not really all that strong considering. Imagine when the team gets better and he can be surrounded by stronger players over the years. It's just crazy to think about some of the special things that kid's going to be able to do. Extremely talented. Some of the plays he made, especially the play he made last night against Nikita Kucherov with a stick blade kind of backwards, knocking it into a pass. It was kind of just things you haven't seen. He's very innovative, very creative, very talented, and scoring at a very solid pace here. Now, we also learned a bit about Carey Price and what ended his career. We knew that he was dealing with multiple injuries at the end of the season after they made it to the Stanley Cup final a couple of years back. We knew that there was a hip issue, which wasn't quite as serious, and then a knee issue. And the knee issue, in the beginning, wasn't thought to be serious. He was dealing with a meniscus injury, which, generally speaking, isn't that big a deal. It does take some time to heal. But Dr. David Mulder, of course, after 60 years with the Habs, has left the organization and retired. But the Habs were having a special gala event to honor the 93 Cup team. And he was present for that and talked to some people. So he did some interviews. And they was asked his opinion on what ended Carey's career. And he said initially they determined he had a meniscus injury that sent him to New York for surgery. And it wasn't until they were there during the operation that the surgeon found that the femur had lost all of its cartilage. So that's what it was that kind of ended his career. So when you go in for a surgical procedure to correct a meniscus tear, like I said, generally it's not a huge deal. It's not, career threatening. But in his case, the knee had way more damage than they ever knew. So that's kind of why things ended up being the way it was. It also explains why, even though he's had multiple other procedures and tried different things, why he can't get to the point that he can play with any kind of regularity. Essentially what he had said before was that every time he would ramp up the activity and practice a bit, he would end up in more pain. So with no cartilage there, it does make sense. So obviously I think it's fair to say, even though I don't know that Carey Price has ultimately said 100% that he's done, but definitely the case that we know now. Scary situation last night as well, an Avalanche game against the Seattle Kraken. Former Habs and current Avalanche player Artturi Lehkonen was taken to hospital after going headfirst into the boards. He was going down towards the corner at a pretty good clip, skating pretty quick, and he ended up, there was a small contact with Jamie Alexiak, the Kraken defenseman, but it wasn't really I don't think you can say Alexiak hit him. It just, they kind of had a little bit of contact, which kind of nudged him, I guess, towards the boards, but he ended up scarily going in head first. He was reported after, he had full movement in all of his limbs and everything. He was alert. So, positive reports in that sense that it's not going to be anything, more serious, but he's definitely obviously going to be missing a little bit of time dealing with that. But scary situation. It could have been a lot worse. For sure. The Blue Jackets, we know that they have been wanting to move a defenseman for some time. We've talked on and off about different trade partners. Now there's some reports indicating that the San Jose Sharks may turn out to be the team they end up dealing with. We saw the Sharks picked up Kalen Addison from the Minnesota Wild the other day, and they're certainly trying to be a little bit more competitive and win a few more hockey games this year, and they might be the team to look to the Jackets here for a little bit of help. Their decor is really nothing to be excited about at all. So whether it be Adam Boqvist or at a peak or one of those guys that are available, they could play a bigger role and end up in San Jose. So take a look for the Jackets and the San Jose Sharks to possibly hook up. We know the Jackets are eager to move one, and the Sharks might be a good spot for them. Now, the Edmonton Oilers and what they might end up doing to address goaltending. And just a quick update on Jack Campbell, who played his first game in the American Hockey League. Not a good start. He allowed 4 goals on 20 shots. Yeah, and then also, not only was it in the NHL was he getting lit up by the Canucks, goes down to the American Hockey League, first games against Abbotsford, the AHL affiliate for the Canucks, and then they beat him. So, I tell you, it's not going good for Campbell. It's one game, but still, after what he's had in the NHL, to go down a level and still give up that kind of shots against that's not good. I mean, 20 shots isn't all that bad, but to allow 4 goals, not what he was looking for by any means. But we heard from Elliotte Friedman on his podcast today saying that he was told by sources that in the last, you could say 48 hours, so Wednesday, that the Edmonton Oilers were very close to making a huge trade with regards to goaltending. Originally, he was told that it was going to be a big move around goaltending and had nothing to do with Jack Campbell going to the minors or being on waivers. So clearly they were close. That tells us that they're having lots of conversations. It's reported that Ken Holland's been aggressive. And at this point, we've talked a bit about different goaltenders they may be reportedly targeting. Bennington's name has come up. Jake Allen's name has come up. UC Saros was one we talked about yesterday that Friedman had wondered about a few days prior. But we also seen reports. So we get this report from Friedman saying that his sources are saying that the Oilers, as of Wednesday, were really close to pulling off a big trade. Okay, so we have that information. And then TSN insider Darren Dreger mentioned that the Montreal Canadiens have been keeping a close eye on Oilers prospect Xavier Bourgault. Well, that tells us that maybe those two teams are talking. Clearly, there's already speculation that a guy like Jake Allen could be a prime target. The cost isn't going to be through the roof. His contract may not be cheap, but it's not exactly, $5-6 million either like some of these guys. Acquisition cost is going to be a little bit less, a little bit older, but he's got a Stanley Cup to his name. Stabilizing force, good leader, good, just guy who can come in and settle things down and quiet things down. It might be one of the more logical options for the Oilers. To pull off a trade for a legit number one starting goaltender this time of year, not easy. Jake Allen's, I don't know if I'd call him that. He's probably close. He'd be closer to that than a lot of the other guys that are on the market that are more backups now. If they could get UC Saros or Carter Hart, they would be better long-term options, but they're going to be a lot more expensive and may not be, possible just based on the acquisition costs right now. Either, of course, being early in the season, other teams may not be as eager to trade given the fact that they don't know where they stand come playoffs. And a guy like Binnington in St. Louis, I think the Blues would be open to it if they knew for sure their season was gone. They don't know that yet. When it comes to Montreal, though, they have 3 goaltenders and they want to move one because they really... They can't keep up with this 3 goaltender system for too long. It's really not good for anybody. For getting games in and being able to stay in game shape and be sharp. I think the Flyers would be willing to listen on Carter Hart, but again, he's probably going to be the most expensive of the bunch given how young he is. Xavier Bourgault could be an interesting young prospect, of course, from the Quebec area that might intrigue the Montreal Canadiens as well. I don't know what kind of cost we're looking at overall. Clearly they may have to take a contract back from the Oilers to make the money side of things work. Hard to say exactly what that could be. There was some speculation maybe it could be a guy like Connor Brown. We know he's going to be due a big bonus soon. If he plays another game, he'll trigger a $3 million bonus. Montreal may not want that. They might need a more of a higher cap hit that's, from the Oilers that can make an impact on their salary cap now, right? So hard to say who that player turns out to be. But Xavier Bourgault could very well be the main younger prospect that could be coming back. Maybe Bourgault, a pick, and then maybe like a second, third round pick, and then a player off the roster to make the money work. And you never know. The deal could even be expanded on Montreal's side too. Maybe there's more than just a goalie going back the other way. But based on what we're hearing from Friedman and based on what we're hearing from Jagr, if you piece it all together, to me, it kind of sounds like we could be on to something in that regard. So be curious to see where things go over the next few days. I suspect Ken Holland, they can't wait too long here. They need, of course, in the interim, if he holds off a few days and the Oilers can get a couple wins, well, that changes things a little bit, takes the pressure off. But if the losing continues, then the pressure to get something done is going to continue to mount, and we'll see where that goes. So let me know your thoughts on all today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.